Hey there, and welcome back to We Don't Do Boring. This is Andy Hancock, and this is my spot on the little blue and green dot. And what's our show about? Well, our show is about experience, time, money, balance, compromise, and experience. And today's little story, which was suggested by a friend of mine. So thank you for all the comments and all the feedback. I love it. It's nice that you're watching the videos, the podcasts, and getting something from them. But I asked a friend of mine, I said, what would you like to hear about? And she said, well, just tell one of your stories. Because your stories always have a point. I went, really? Wow. Some people think my stories are pointless. But anyway, they're just a form of communication. And storytelling's been around for a while. So that's what our show's about. And today's show is all about this. A long time ago, on a planet far, far away. Oh, let's get that into view. There you go. There's a picture of me on a large scaffold. Let's pull it back a bit. There you go, so you can see it. All right. Picture of me on a big scaffold with my first ever tree carving. So there you go. It's in a place called Lake Vyrnwy in Wales, and which is a place still very dear to my heart. And it was where I got my big break. And so today's show, it's about getting a big break? No. It's about communication overcomes fear. Because unless you're communicating, you can stay in that bubble. We're back to the Bubbleites. And I don't have a bubble, because I'm always thinking what I could do with the bubble. I don't have a box because I've always made the box into something else. So, but communication overcomes fear. So how did me standing on a scaffold carving a tree start all this off? Well, a long time ago in a land far, far away, I was a sculptor. I am a sculptor now, but I was a wood sculptor who was trying to make a break and trying to get into wood sculpture. But I really wanted to do big stuff. I didn't want to do small things. I found small carvings just tedious. And there's millions of great carvers out there. But I just didn't. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the big time. So I wanted to do big public pieces of art that had never been done before, really. Nobody'd ever sort of used the materials I used. And I was good at recycling. I was good at finding things for nothing. So I made contact with the new forester in Britain. They have a thing called the Forestry Commission, a new forester called Andy Hall. And I said, can I come and see you? I'm a local sculptor and I really want to do some stuff at the lake. And I think you said you're going to change the lake and give it a fresh look. So I would love to talk to you about that. And he said, yes, I've heard of you. You're the guy who carved the tree over in whatever. And I said, yeah, that's me. So I went to see him and he said, I've only got 30 minutes. So 2.5 hours later, he said, what can I do for you? What can we start this off with? I need a big signature piece to start this off with. I said, okay, I've always wanted to carve a totemic sculpture. And he said, oh, like a totem pole. I said, yeah, but not an Indian totem pole. It doesn't go with the thing around it, the theme. The theme's preservation, conservation, key species. It's the Audubon Society or the RSPB is involved in the site. So I said, he said, I have got just the thing for you. So he took me down the road to look at this 50-foot pine tree or 60-foot pine tree and said, what about that then? I said, okay, right. To do what? He said, to do your sculpture, I said, wow, okay, fantastic. That'd be wonderful because I wanted a break for so long and I've been harping on and trying to do work and get noticed and do all this stuff as you do as an artist. And to get such an amazing guy to say, yeah, there's the tree, go for it, we'll pay for the stuff and see how you do, And I thought, wow, somebody has faith. They have faith in me almost as much as I have faith in myself because I was very confident then, just like I am now. Yes, but my confidence could overtake my common sense, which it did. But it doesn't matter. That's the whole point. I'm, like I've said before, a man who never made a mistake, never learned anything. So we arranged for this tree to be cut off. He had it cut down in short order. He got people to climb it, chop the top off. And he said, how much do you want? I said, I'll leave it at 30 feet. That's all right. 10 meters. That'll be fine. Not even thinking about what I was saying. I just thought, yeah, big totem pole. So I went back and looked at it after he chopped it off and I thought, oh, wow, okay, that's high. Oh, well, never mind. So he arranged the scaffolding guys turned up. And as you can see from the scaffolding, I'll give you another view of that. It was the aluminum sort of clipped together box type and, make a box. And I thought, well, I don't need much. I'll just do it around the pole and off I'll go. Yeah, mistake number one. So they put this up and I thought, wow, There's not a lot of room between that tree and the edge of the scaffold. But I thought, never mind, it'll be enough. I'll be fine. And I wasn't even using a proper carving saw there. If I'd had a carving saw, I wouldn't have had any problem at all. But I was inexperienced and a lot younger. This is 30 years ago. And I just went for it. I thought, yeah, this will be fine. So when the scaffolding was finished, they finished at about, I suppose 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, right, great, thanks, guys. And off they went down the road. So I climbed the scaffold, and the wind was getting up a bit, but I thought, that's no problem, you know. So I started climbing the scaffold. There were little internal ladders, which you can't see because I'd taken them down now because I got used to it, but in the picture. But I started climbing the ladders, and this huge gust of wind, and when I was about 20 feet up, hit the scaffold and the tree, and it was a big one, it was a big gust. It broke some branches off, and it absolutely rocked me to the core, and I was just frozen. I literally froze on the scaffold. I had 1 foot on the next step to go up, and I just froze because I was very, very, very frightened. Didn't realise then how much I didn't like heights. Just thought it was going to be okay. Confidence, it'll do that for you. Anyway, so I'm stuck there, and I literally can't move. I'm absolutely frozen with fear, and I've never been like that before or since in my life. And I was on the edge of being terrified, really. I just couldn't move. I couldn't move anything. Couldn't get my brain to tell me to move. I just couldn't do, because I thought the whole thing was going to fall down, and with me on it. So, and I thought, I literally was scared rigid. And so after about probably an hour, literally I sat there for an hour wondering what to do and how to, I was trying to figure out in my brain how to overcome this fear that had locked me in one position. And the only thing I could do was thought, well, I've got to get on my phone. I have to communicate with somebody. And I thought, who's closest? And I thought, Keith is the guy who's going to help me, a friend of mine. So I got my phone out of my pocket and managed to get hold of him. And I said, I've got a real problem here, dude. And he goes, what's up? And I said, I'm stuck on a scaffold. He said, where are you? I said, he said, I'll be right there. I said, thank you so much. I said, I am just stuck bad. And he said, no, I'll be right there. So he lives a couple of valleys over. He came over, and basically, he looks at me and he said, what are you doing halfway up the scaffold, Hancock? I said, I can't move. And he said, what? I said, I'm frozen. I said, I'm scared, man. I said, the big man Hancock is scared out of his wits. And he said, oh, really? Oh, okay, let me get up there. And when he was climbing the scaffold, I got even more worried because the thing's moving. It's only light alloy, and it's moving. He gets onto the deck and he says, wow. He said, you really can't move. I said, no, I've been stuck here for an hour. And he just started laughing. He said, an hour? What have you been doing? I said, thinking about trying to move. And he realised how serious it was then, and he just said, okay, let's just do this one thing at a time. He said, do you think the scaffold's going to fall down? I said, well, it hasn't, but it's been blowing like crazy, and it's just locked me here. And he said, well, it's not, look. And he said, hold on. And he shook the scaffold. And I went, oh, man, I wish you wouldn't do that. And he said, it's not going to fall over, dude. I've just climbed up it. There's 2 of us standing on it now. How can it fall over? It's also built around the tree, which has been here for, 70 years? So it's not going anywhere, Andy. He said, put your foot down off the step. Just try and put your foot down. I said, I'm not going to touch you. He said, just put your foot down. So I did that. I thought, I've got to do this. Take my foot down, put it on, because my leg was almost dead by this time. So I put that down and took the pressure off of my other leg, which made me feel better. And I said, oh, wow, thank you so much. And he said, no problem. He said, what are you going to do now? And I said, I'm going to climb down. I said, I don't know. I can't. I just got to get out of here. I've got to get off this thing. And he said the greatest words ever about fear and about facing it. But the communication was what made it work for me. And he said, why are you going to go down when you have to go up tomorrow? And you have to understand, I've been on a journey to try and get a job like this, to get a break for 1 to 2 years. I was desperate to get into some big stuff and have somebody who could pay me. I had 3 children, I had to get paid. And this man put his faith in me. And I thought, yeah, and all the things that I'd done to get to that position, all the work that I'd done, all the talking, all the sculptures, all the saying I could do things. Yeah. All my big mouth had got me into this position. I thought, well, I can't let these people down. They've all shown faith in me. And what am I going to do? Tell them I can't do it because I'm scared? I mean, the embarrassment of that would have been, well, it would have been the end of my career, really. But because, we get him to climb the tree, but he won't climb it. He's too scared. So, and so he said, you've got to go up, not down. And I thought, he said, come on, I'll come with you. It's all right. He said, I'll be behind you, so if you fall, you'll fall on me. It's good. Don't worry about it. So I put my hands on the ladder and I started to climb. And we got to the next layer and he was behind me. And I got to the next layer and he was behind me. And then I ended up on the top layer. When I realized, and he said, okay, he said, we got to get past this, dude. He said, you've got to do this for, how long is this thing going to take you? I said, I don't know, a month, 6 weeks. He said, you're going to climb this every day for 6 weeks? You better get used to this. So I said, yeah. I said, but I said, tell you what, I don't like the view up here at all. This is like, whoa. And he said, I've got a guy who does scaffold, but I've also got a neat little, this guy will help you. And I'll give you his number. But don't worry about that for now. You can do that when you get home. And it's going dark by this time. He said, right, he said, put your hands on top of the tree. I said, what? I'm not letting go of the scaffold. He said, put your hands on the tree. I'll hold the scaffold, which is ridiculous because the scaffold was holding itself up. And so he said, shake the tree. I went, what? Anyway, I pushed this tree and it is moving. It's moving quite a lot because it's a 30-foot stick. And I thought, right, okay. And he said, do you think it's going to fall over? And I said, no, not really. It's been here quite a while. And he said, okay. He said, I'm going to shake the scaffold. Hold on to the tree. So he shook the scaffold, and which I didn't like at all. And but I was holding on to the tree. So I thought, well, I can't go anywhere. I'll be on the tree. So then that helped me to settle my mind and to get used to the fact. He said, what's the matter with you? He said, you go like an absolute idiot on a motorbike. He said, what happens when your back wheel breaks away or your front wheel starts moving or it gets real squirrely or you run into a patch of water and it just skids and whatever? What do you do then? I said, well, I'm used to that. He said, well, you better get used to this. He said, what's the difference? It's a slidey road. The bike moves a bit. You don't panic. You just put the throttle on usually. He said, you ride like a maniac. And because he's a biker too, he understands. And he's a lot smoother, actually, than me. A lot smoother. Anyway, so I thought, wow, that's a great point. Yeah, I'm not worried about my motorcycle moving. So why would I be worried about a tree with scaffolding locked around the outside of it? So, it just made me think. The communication was helping me overcome my fear. So I thought, right. I thought, you got a point. Yes, and I don't, and he said, you're going to get paid for this, aren't you? I said, yeah. I said, I don't want to let anybody down. He said, well, you've got to get used to it then. He said, time to overcome your fear. I said, well, thank you. But yeah, I said, you've really helped with that because I'm already at the top of it. He said, yeah, you're going to have to come back here tomorrow, but let's sort the scaffolding out first. And the suggestion he made, I rang this guy and I said, I really need your help on some scaffolding. I'm nervous of heights. And I said, Keith told me you can help me. He said, I'll be over there tomorrow morning. Where are you? Lake Vernwy? He said, I'm not far away. He said, I'll bring a couple of bits with me. And what he did was, you can see where my feet are on that standing on that scaffold board. And what he did, he wrapped a board around my feet. So around here, sort of this way and then this way. So when I glanced down, my eye didn't hit the ground, didn't see the ground. It saw the scaffold board, and which sounds a stupid thing. I mean, how on earth is that going to work? And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. So the communication with another man solved my, like 80% of my fear just went away because I wasn't getting that glance down and seeing 30 feet. I was glancing down or when your eye caught the side of the floor, or when I was moving down with the saw, I saw the edge of the scaffold boards. I didn't see the ground. So that helped me immensely, and that's a trick that I learned, and I used it. I've used it my whole career. So, but without the communication of that friend, and without him, having faith in me, and actually, I mean, we're good friends. So, without that communication, I would have been really stuck. So we climbed down the scaffold, and he said, "You gonna be okay now?" I said, "Yeah, I think so." I said, "Thank you." So communication overcame my fear. And the next day I went back and I climbed right to the top of it before I took any equipment up there. I realized it was too small. I made a bad mistake. The scaffolding was way too small, and it's never been small since, I can tell you. But I made a bad mistake through being overconfident and not really knowing what I needed, because I should have talked to a scaffold man before I scaffolded that tree, but I didn't. I just ordered the scaffold and that was it, because I thought, oh, this is all I need. And that was a mistake. So I learned from that mistake and I haven't made it since. So, but the communication overcame my fear. And I climbed to the top and then I climbed all the way down again. Then I got my chainsaws and my bag and everything else, and I climbed all the way to the top again, put them on the floor. And the other thing the man did was cover the holes. I only had one board to stand on. You can see it there. It's before, I'd already taken them off at this stage because I was moving up and down. He covered the hole between the side of the scaffold and the tree, so I could walk around three sides of it. There wasn't enough room to do the other side because there was no view. There was going to be no view. This is the road side you're looking from, and there's no view on the other side, so it's not carved at all on the other side. So I wasn't worried about that because I put the scaffold up against the tree. Yeah, But it wouldn't have been any good to carve the other side anyway, but the scaffold should have been way wider. So without that man helping me, my fear would have continued, and I was not a happy bunny. So I have to thank those friends and those people who came and helped me, because it was remarkable. But what they did is, just by communicating with people of experience, right, I learned that I should not jump the gun. I should do more research. This was a long time ago. You didn't have Google then, dear. Well, you probably did in some form, but I don't know. But it wasn't about that. It was about, this is out in the middle of nowhere, literally. So, I was very grateful. So what's this got to do with my podcast? Well, experience. Wow, that taught me a lesson. Money. I was trying to earn money for my family. I had three boys by then, and I was trying to earn money, and it was desperate that I actually completed this job to earn the money. So the desperation was on the money side as well. My time was carving that tree. I had to do it. And I had a time limit too, because they were going to open it at Easter weekend. And it's quite funny, the reaction actually, because everybody said, well, carved tree, yeah, one or two folks will show up. What they didn't know was that the water company who were involved with the site and the Forestry Commission arranged none other than Sir David Bellamy, before he passed, who came out and unveiled the pole, which he didn't unveil it, he opened it. And it was phenomenal. And he paid me a great compliment, which I've never forgotten. He said I was the greatest woodpecker he'd ever met, which is fantastic. But he was very impressed that we reused the dead tree. He was a naturalist, a very famous one. So it worked out splendidly in the end, but I did have a time limit, so my time was important. Also, balance and compromise. Well, I learned how to balance on scaffolding, I can tell you, but that was no different to balancing on my motorcycle. So I didn't even make the link, and I've done that a lot since. Also, compromise. Ooh, yeah, I was pretty compromised when I was stuck on that scaffold. But the compromise was I had to overcome my fear, to not let people down, and to it was a balance between not letting people down and actually getting the job done to make myself this guy who can carve trees, and it was a compromise because, man, I didn't want to go up there and I wanted that scaffold changed, but I couldn't do that. So I had to compromise, and I had to think, get on with it, get over your fear and get on with it. So, and then communication is what saved me. It literally saved my career. You can imagine, oh, this guy's a wood sculptor and he carves trees, but he doesn't like climbing them. Yeah. So all those things came into play. So the story of the epic fail, really, on my part, was through not doing enough research. But the main point of the story is my fear was overcome with communication. So if you're stuck in a bubble, and you communicate with the same people all the time, okay, the bubble's never gonna get any bigger. It's gonna get smaller, and the only thing that's gonna be trapped in it is you going like this, going round and round and round and round, having the same conversation. So you need to get out of the bubble and communicate with more people. Try more communication. I know some of you are fearful of communication. You're not like me. You're not outgoing, ebullient, all that stuff, and you can't just talk. My mother often said I never met a stranger. Anyway, you're not like that. well, you have to be more, you have to just push through the bubble. And I know some people just can't do that. The amount of fear in the world at the moment is quite staggering. And we've stopped communicating, except online with Zoom meetings and other nonsense. And I don't like those. I think that face-to-face communication conveys emotion, passion, and lots of other things, which we don't have anymore. You can't, and texting and emailing are completely emotionless forms of communication. So they're great for getting a point across. If you don't want to talk to somebody and you want to make a point, send them an email or a text. Completely emotionless, and you can just list the points. I've just done that for somebody else because they admitted that. Yeah, I said, well, why don't you just tell these people what is wrong? And he said, well, I'm a pussy. And I said, what? This guy is, hardcore Texas bravado. But it was his family, and he didn't want to upset anybody. I said, well, cracking eggs and omelettes and all that stuff. And also, he's at a stage where he's desperate, just like I was on that scaffold. And the only thing that's going to help him, and it has helped him, I hope, is communication. So there you go. So fear can be overcome with communication. If you're in a bad spot and you keep talking to the same people all the time about the same things, you're never going to move. You'll be frozen on a scaffold, the scaffold of life. And that's no good. And I had to break through that bubble of fear, absolute rigid fear, using communication to get off that thing and to start my career. And that tree did start my career, and I was very fortunate. The man supported me. He was thrilled with the tree. I mean, Andy was just saying, wow, awesome. And the one or two people who showed up, besides Bellamy, blocked the road all day. You couldn't actually drive onto the lakeside road at all because it was just jammed with people. So, and nobody had any idea, including me. I had no idea that many people would show up. I mean, it was ridiculous. So it started my career, and I'm always grateful to all those people, but I'm grateful for making that mistake early in my career. And I am grateful. But so scaffolding, yes. These days it's a lot bigger and much more solid and wider, and Andy doesn't make the same mistake. Right. And I did one job where the scaffolding actually cost more than the sculpture because it was very technically difficult. It had to hang over a road. Right, yes. Anyway, so there you go. Communication can overcome fear, but you have to be prepared to break the bubble. You have to be prepared to talk to new people. If you don't talk to anybody new, how are you ever going to learn anything new? I mean, that's the other thing. If you don't talk to new people, how do you learn anything new? I mean, online, yeah. Unless you ask the right question online, you're not going to get the right answer. So you'll be stuck in a bubble with a bunch of answers that are not right. So there you go. So communication overcomes fear. That's what I wanted to say today. Thank you for your feedback. Please make some comments. Please tell me what you want me to talk about next. And I've got lots more stories, yes. Yeah, because I'm old. Yeah, old. But and I'm grateful that there are people watching, and I'm grateful that talking to myself is actually getting somewhere. So if you've got friends, pass it on, especially their bubble-lights. And then they can watch it and realise that they're in a bubble, because a lot of people in bubbles don't realise they're in a bubble. Right, so, okay, this is Andy Hancock. We don't do boring. Keep sending everything in. Subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. And I'll see you on the next one. Oh, we made it past number 7. Yay. Oh, and creation begins with destruction. Yes. I'll see you next time.